Hello and welcome to this video on cutting paste. This is also known as wound paste or wound sealer. It is a subject with ardent followers, strong deniers, or those who are ambivalent about it. This means it has a niche role and generally finds more use in certain groups than others. When you cut a large branch from a tree or shorten the trunk, you leave a large hole. The cambium is exposed in this hole, which means the living, moving part of the tree is exposed to the outside world. Consequently, it runs the risk of infection and dieback. You can think of this as being like a cut in your skin, but considerably more slow in terms of both risk and recovery. Cutting paste is often made from a starch or mineral-like base in combination with an oil-based solvent and drying agents. This makes it water-resilient, malleable, and semi-solid once dry. This keeps the inner part of the tree moist, but not wet, thereby avoiding rot and dieback. We use our own recipe, but it shares many similar points to commercial products. Like the human body, the tree needs to recover from certain injuries. Unlike the human body, the way the tree develops is, strictly speaking, not healing. Everybody, for the most part, understands that trees develop in a circular motion with concentric rings of development. This means that if the tree becomes damaged, and the damage occurs in a point before the current concentric ring of growth, the tree lacks a way to deal with this. It means it can't replace that damaged section of the tree, and as a result, the tree has to find a way to control and mitigate this damage. The most common way it can do this is by containing it. The problem the tree faces in trying to contain this damage is that it is always growing outwards, and this means it needs to find a way to grow outwards and block off this damage. If we're talking about constant circular growth, that's never going to happen as it will move away from the damage. When the tree is damaged, it therefore needs to find a way to work back into that point and fix or block in that section of the tree, and this limits the amount of damage possible. You can think of it in a manner of speaking as being similar to scar tissue in the human body. Rather than being functional replacement of that damaged area, it simply fills in the hole. Human scar tissue is not necessarily functional for the purpose of that part of the body, but it is functional as a barrier. This prevents infection and continuing destruction of that part of the body. The callus on a tree is more or less the same fundamental thing. Unlike this scar in a human though, it follows two different processes. This creates a chemical and physical way to control the damage. Chemical alteration is there to make the area inhospitable to pathogens, particularly molds that would cause rot. The second is the wood callus, or wound wood. This is a physical barrier, and this is what is going to fill in that hole that we're talking about. The callus will both cover and seal the wound, but as you'll note from what we've said so far, this is obviously going to take a long time. The callus will continue to grow above and beyond the point of where the injury occurred. This is a phenomenon we see every time we cut into a tree. In order to minimize the harm on a large scale, places such as orchards seal branches or cover them with an antiseptic. This process has been translated to bonsai trees with cutting paste. For lack of a better word, another myth is that the cutting paste is more effective at causing the tree to heal, and that some types of cutting paste work best. This is relatively controversial, and there's very little systemic evidence to prove one way or another, and this is why we say that many places will either use it, not use it, or be ambivalent, in which case someone may use it in particular applications but not others. The application of cutting paste is simple enough. You take your paste and work it into pliable enough for your injury site. You find your hole or similar and pack it in tightly. Do this until it is covered and sitting ever so slightly proud. Remember, it will dry and shrink slightly to come back level with the rest of the tree. Over time, it will be pushed out by the tree's healing and that callus. Not all cutting paste is universal. You might need to consider using something special or another type of cutting paste for Pinus species trees in particular. Some people will find that different cutting paste products can also cause dieback, but others do not, and again, this can be based on different trees or formulations, and it's something you need to consider experimenting with. This is not to say that cutting or wound paste has no use whatsoever. It can be very useful for holding tree or branches in a particular way. We use it for branch grafts, packing or padding when wiring and trying to use different methods to move branches. Cutting paste is something we use, but not for cuts. We find that trees generally perform better without it, and it is an unnecessary extra step in an already busy schedule. Cutting paste can be useful in covering fresh wounds or damage when displaying a bonsai, but beyond this, we have little application for it. You may find with your trees it's necessary due to a humid environment, possible pathogens, and more reasons that are particular to your circumstances. Thank you for watching this video. If you have found it interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please post any comments, questions, or suggestions below.